rumors. We have heard a lot of rumors over the last week about what Xbox has planned. Are they going multi-platform or are they not? Are they abandoning their loyal console user base? The rumors and speculation have been bizarre and really, I'd say, just insane, mixed into one single chaotic blender. The questions are plentiful, no doubt, but it's now time to put some of that to rest. Xbox has officially set the date to answer some of those ongoing questions that fans have, and we're going to talk about that today and how they plan to do it, because even that has been filled with speculation and rumors. Now, we will also talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 today because it's gotten some extremely good news, or at least according to the latest rumor. And then, if you stay tuned, we will also talk about PlayStation, some of their games as well. Before we get started, though, I do want to go ahead and thank you all for all the get well wishes that you all have sent me over the last 4 or 5 days. My family and I are doing much, much better now. We've been sick, and while I'm still dealing with a little bit of congestion, everybody is feeling much better than what they did last week. And just thank you all so much for being kind and also for being patient. I truly do appreciate you all, so thank you very, very much. Let's just go and get right into things, though, and we might as well just go and dive right into this Xbox story. I'm sure a lot of you all are fed up with the rumors. I am as well, because I think that they've gotten out of control by this point. I said this pretty much right away, but I feel like a lot of people overlooked a very key detail about a lot of the rumors going around, and that was that Xbox was quote-unquote considering certain games for other platforms, considering being the key word. Consideration does not mean that something is absolutely going to happen. But for some reason, a lot of people kind of jumped to the assumption that all of these games were suddenly confirmed for all platforms. And we heard about games like Starfield, Gears of War, Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Indiana Jones, and the list just kind of goes on and on and on. And that does make sense when you think about it, because I imagine that if Xbox is considering this plan, again, considering being the key word here, then yes, they probably talked about almost every single game that they have. That is a logical assumption to make. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're planning to port all of these different games, but yes, I do imagine that they might have at least had discussions about these games. I also think that these internal discussions are happening because of Microsoft, people like Satya Nadella and Tim Stewart. I think they might be putting pressure on the Xbox team after heavily investing into their gaming business since 2017 with all of these different acquisitions. They want a return on investment. So I think that's kind of the divide going on right now. I think the Xbox team is very much looking at their business as an ecosystem, get people into the ecosystem, sell Game Pass subscriptions, sell consoles, sell exclusives, the typical business practice, whereas Microsoft, they're very much looking at this from a publisher's point of view. Microsoft historically is very much a software company, so putting their games on as many platforms as possible would make sense to them. So that's where I think some of the back and forth and those internal discussions are coming from. However, putting all of the speculation to the side, only Xbox and Microsoft can really confirm whether they'll go through with those considerations, and that's what we're going to hear about this Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can see here that they finally confirmed a date. The official Xbox Twitter account posted, "Please join us for our special edition of the official Xbox podcast." Hear from Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty as they share updates on the Xbox business. Now, there was actually a lot of speculation that Microsoft's leadership would host this business event, but this already puts that rumor to rest. This will be handled by the 3 most important people on the Xbox team, which is exactly what you want to see. It's going to be handled by Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty. They know the most about the game business, and whatever they're about ready to tell us, they're going to be able to relay that the absolute best compared to somebody like Satya Nadella and Tim Stewart. It also debunks the rumor that Sarah Bond was going to do this by herself this spring, which, that rumor should have never taken off the way it did. The source was always questionable at best, but, that's been the theme throughout this entire charade. The rumors have just been crazy. Beyond crazy at times. And I think that's why having a podcast is the perfect choice to give an update like this. I've seen some people question a podcast, but the reason I like this choice is because this way they can discuss in great length exactly what's happening, have a real conversation, and right now, more than ever, the community needs detailed answers. There's a lot of questions that needs to be addressed right now. The first of which, of course, is the elephant in the room. Are they going third party? And I expect them to say no. I think they're going to come out and they're going to reassure fans that they're committed to Xbox consoles. They reportedly told their employees as much as well last week, and I think they're going to come out and reiterate that on Thursday. Now, with that said, the success of their consoles will still rely on this business update because their exclusive strategy will remain the pivotal part of this conversation. Do they plan on porting any of their games? Because that's the crux of everything that's happening right now. And if so, how extensive is this plan? Let's go and hypothetically say that if they do go through with this rumored plan and they didn't back off anything, even if it's just for smaller games like, let's say, Pentiment, or for old live service games like Sea of Thieves, they will still need to methodically deliver this message. There is that question, will this open Pandora's box? Is this going to bring all of their exclusives in the future to question? They're going to need to commit to their console fan base to an extent here that they will indeed get big-time exclusives in the future and that their investment is worth it. If they go in that direction of it's only a case-by-case basis thing and it's only for smaller games or whatever, they just need to deliver that message properly if they truly go in that direction. Another thing that they need to answer, though, and I'm not 100% sure if they're going to fully detail this here, but we need to hear about the Activision Blizzard situation. I mean, the acquisition completed last year in October, and we still don't know what they have planned together. I think a lot of that's because of the ongoing FTC trial and them trying to keep things as close to the vest as possible. And, even on Wednesday, they still might not be able to freely talk about their full plans together. But if they can start to speak about some of this stuff, there's a few things that fans would really like to hear. Xbox Game Pass and also exclusivity. I mean, we all know and understand that Call of Duty will be multi-platform. That whole debacle in court was always ridiculous. It's going to stay multi-platform. We know that much. But what about all of these other franchises? That's been the million-dollar question. What about games like Crash, Spyro, Diablo, and all of these other games? Can they finally confirm whether or not future games in their franchises will be multi-platform in the future? I'm assuming that they probably will be multi-platform, but we do need that confirmation from Xbox or Microsoft. And also, what about day one Xbox Game Pass games? That's another thing that has been brought into question over the last couple of weeks. And I think especially with Call of Duty, that's a top 3 seller every single year without the need of Game Pass. And as much as I love Game Pass, as much as the Xbox community loves Game Pass, it isn't really seeing the same major growth as it saw early on. And because of that, there has been questions about, how Microsoft might feel about Game Pass. So there's been questions regarding day one first-party releases. Again, they've invested, $70+ billion in Activision Blizzard. They invested billions of dollars in Bethesda, and they've also acquired all of these other companies. So the question of day one first-party titles, just because of a lot of the rumors over the last couple weeks, maybe it would be nice for them to address that as well. Either way, I mean, you can kind of say that there's really questions across the board right now. Some, admittedly, are a little bit dramatic. My gut feeling right now is telling me that some of this has been blown out of proportion. There might be some truth to them, but I'm not going to go in with the expectation that Xbox is folding the brand and moving completely third party. I don't think that's what's happening here, but their plans, it could be very interesting depending on what they say, and definitely considering all the online reaction that we've gotten over the last couple weeks. This is without a doubt a very, very important podcast for them to deliver properly. If I were to make a prediction, I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and announced Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and even something like Sea of Thieves as multi-platform titles. I mean, we'll see if those rumors turn out to be true. They could even backtrack on some of that stuff, just considering some of the reactions online. But let me know what you all think. Let me hear your predictions in the comments below. Let me know what you think they're going to say this Thursday. Okay, now we do also have a pretty interesting development for the Nintendo Switch 2. One of the most asked questions is whether or not this thing has backwards compatibility. Now, honestly, I think most people are working themselves up a little too much over this topic. Theoretically, yes, they could go away from backwards compatibility, but I really just don't believe that's going to be the case. If you look at Nintendo, historically, they've done a good job with backwards compatibility. And I don't really see a reason to believe why they wouldn't with their second most successful console ever made. The Switch has already sold 140 million units worldwide, which is absolutely incredible. And just as important, its games are selling extremely well. So when you see something like that, I have to think to myself, why would they cut that supply off? And that's why I've never really overly concerned myself with this particular topic. I'd honestly be shocked if the Switch 2 didn't support Switch games, or at least most of them. Hopefully Nintendo doesn't surprise me with this one, but there are still some questions that I do have. I'll get into that here in just a minute, but a new rumor popped up via Universo Nintendo. This seems to be the place that's sharing this news, but if you look at the article, they actually source PH Brazil, and according to them, the Nintendo Switch 2 will have both physical and digital backwards compatibility, and on top of that, developers will also have the option to enhance their old games on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. Now that right there is the question that I've often found myself asking. I mean, you look at what Xbox has done this generation with their back compat games, and they've really stepped things up. They enhanced their games all the way back to the original Xbox in various different ways, and even the PlayStation 5 offers upgrades to various PS4 games, sometimes with paid upgrades, and that's something that Nintendo could explore as well. Again, Nintendo makes a lot of evergreen games. Their games just seem to sell for years and years and years, and if they can enhance those games, that really just kind of ensures that they'll continue to sell for an entirely new generation. Why would Nintendo not want to do something like that? I mean, Mario Kart 8 might end up reaching 100 million units sold at this rate. But seriously, this would be incredible if true. Even if it's just a simple resolution buff, there's a lot of games that would greatly benefit from that. Look at something like the Xenoblade series, which often runs sub 720p in handheld mode. That series would greatly benefit from a resolution upgrade. Or, if you look at something like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, maybe the Switch 2 can finally fix its problems. It could at the very least fix up its frame rate, if nothing else. So yeah, I think this is incredibly exciting stuff, again, if it's true. I mean, that really is the question, though. I'm not exactly familiar with PH Brazil myself and their content, but Universal Nintendo, which has a pretty decent track record, seems to be pretty confident in what they have to say. You can see here from their article that they mentioned this. PH Brazil is currently a content creator and also a games journalist who has already brought a lot of information about Nintendo's or partners' movements in advance and with precision in the past. Taking into account its history, there is a high chance that this information will become fact when the console is announced. So, I mean, you can kind of take this leak as you will, but it's absolutely massive news if it's true. I just hope that we get an official confirmation from Nintendo sooner rather than later. Now let's go talk about PlayStation, though, and their live service aspirations. PlayStation is well known for the single-player content, especially with that over-the-top, third-person cinematic view. That is their specialty. But, on the other side, they've really struggled with multiplayer games, which puts them in an interesting position. Jim Ryan has pushed them more towards live service games this generation, and everybody's kind of holding their breath to see how all that turns out, and, well, they might have actually gotten their first big hit here. Helldivers 2 released last Thursday on both PC and the PlayStation 5, so this is one of their first day-and-date PC games, and it actually turned out to be a major success for them. The studio already confirmed it surpassed 1 million units sold, and if you look over on Steam, it's been one of the most played games since it first launched. It did surpass that coveted 100,000 concurrent player amount, and in fact, its peak high on Steam is 156,000, which which is very, very impressive. Now, it did have a pretty rough start. A lot of people were reporting crashes and things like that. A lot of people are also not exactly thrilled by its anti-cheat measure. But other than that, it does seem like fans are enjoying it. It does have a 74% approval rate despite those issues. So it does seem like Sony has a winner on their hands here. Now, we do need to see its staying power, see if it can have prolonged success. But I imagine right now Sony is looking at its launch, and they're probably more than thrilled. I think this also really speaks to those day-and-date PC releases and why it's a good thing for them to continue with this strategy. Anytime they have a live service game, it's important for them to launch on PC day and date, and you can look at this game as one such example. Now, unfortunately, though, I can't really say the same thing for their other live service exclusive being Foamstars. This did not appear on PC, but it did launch directly into PlayStation Plus, and I'd say Square Enix is probably pretty happy that they made that deal with Sony in retrospect. This game might not be making all that much otherwise because right now it doesn't exactly appear to be very well received. Well, Metacritic, it does have a 60 overall score with just 14 reviews for the time being, and its user score isn't much better with a 6.8. I don't usually care about user scores all that much just because they can easily be manipulated, especially when it comes to exclusives, but I've really not heard much good about this game since its release, which is kind of interesting in the aspect that early previews last year seemed to be quite impressed by Foamstars. So I'm not exactly sure what happened with all that, but Square Enix's attempt at a Splatoon-like game clearly is not going all that well, or at least right now. I mean, maybe they can get things turned around, but I don't know. In my opinion, this was always a weird game to make an exclusive. Live service games, more than really anything else, needs as many platforms as they can release on, especially when they are not an established IP. If you have played Foamstars, though, let me know what you all think about it. Are you enjoying it or not? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. Again, this should be a very interesting week with the Xbox podcast incoming. Again, let me hear your thoughts about that and what you expect them to say there. And yeah, there's also a possible chance that a Nintendo Direct could be this week. There's lots of rumors swirling around right now. But until next time, peace out.